In the ancient age of valor and conquest, 7 kings ruled the world with unmatched power. These kings were known across the lands not just for their vast armies, but for their insatiable thirst for dominance. The year was 1123 BC, a time when kingdoms rose to glory through blood and steel. They ruled over the largest empires of their time, each king holding dominion over thousands of lives. But with greatness came rivalry. For these 7 kings saw each other not as equals but as competitors. Their names were written in history, not only for their conquest but for the tragic war that followed. First was King Zoran, ruler of Eldrak, the kingdom of the Iron Mountains. His armies were unmatched in strength, their armor forged from the hardest metals known to man. Then there was King Alric of Norwyn, master of the seas. His navy controlled the vast waters of the world, striking terror into any who dared cross his ships. King Tarvos of Serion was feared for his mastery of siege warfare, while Queen Lyra of Valoria, the only woman among the 7, was known for her cunning and alliances, using diplomacy as a weapon. King Serion of Qildor led the desert warriors, their endurance unmatched in the brutal heat. King Beller of Kastor ruled the fertile lands of the east, his wealth overflowing from the trade of gold and spices. Lastly, King Drathos of Malvenor, a kingdom shrouded in forest, was known for his elusive and deadly archers. For years, these kings expanded their territories, each vying for greater power, conquering smaller kingdoms and forcing them into submission. They made these captive kingdoms pay heavy taxes, gold, grain, soldiers, all flowing into the coffers of the 7. Yet, their thirst for superiority grew with each passing year. Despite their conquests, they could not stand the sight of one another. Each saw the other as an obstacle to their eternal glory. It was only a matter of time before their ambitions would turn toward each other. The first spark came when King Alric's navy blockaded the trade routes of Eldrak, cutting off its iron supply. King Zoran, enraged, declared war, calling on his armies to march to the coast. At the same time, a secret alliance between Queen Lyra and King Beller threatened the borders of Serion. King Tarvos, feeling cornered, struck first, sending his war machines against Valoria's fortresses. The War of the 7 Kings had begun. For months, the kingdoms clashed. Armies marched across the continent, turning the once fertile lands into battlefields soaked with blood. The skies turned gray with the smoke of burning cities, and the rivers ran red with the fallen. King Zoran's ironclad infantry met King Alric's naval forces on the shores of Norwyn. Meanwhile, King Serion's desert warriors ambushed Queen Lyra's forces in the scorching heat of the southern plains. The war tore through every corner of the land, leaving destruction in its wake. As the war raged on, it became clear that no one would emerge as the true victor. Kingdoms lay in ruins. Villages were abandoned, and fields once green were now barren wastelands. The mighty kings had brought devastation upon their own lands in their quest for supremacy. King Drathos, who had once believed in the glory of war, stood on the battlefield among the dead and realized the futility of their struggle. It was not the power they sought that they had gained, but loss of life, of land, of peace. On a day when the wind blew cold and the land was silent, the 7 kings gathered. No armies, no weapons. Only the realization that their ambitions had cost them more than they could ever gain. King Zoran, once the proud ruler of the Iron Mountains, spoke first. "We sought power, but we have only sown destruction." King Beller agreed, his voice heavy with regret. "We have bled our people dry. This war must end." In that moment, the king swore an oath, a promise of peace. They vowed never again to seek power through war. They would be rulers, yes, but no longer conquerors. And they would set free the kingdoms they had once enslaved, letting them govern themselves without fear. And so, the War of the Seven Kings ended. The captives were freed, and the kings returned to their lands, not as rivals, but as leaders dedicated to rebuilding what they had destroyed. The bloodshed was over, and the world could once again breathe in peace. The tale of the Seven Kings was one of ambition, war, and loss. But in the end, it became a story of redemption and peace. A lesson that the greatest power lies not in conquest, but in unity.